Hey, welcome back to the Amplified Podcast. My name is Jac Carnett. I will be your host as usual for today. And so today we're going to be going over Genesis 22 and Genesis 23. This is honestly one of the more difficult chapters we could go through because there is so much packed into Genesis 22 and so much prophecy that Abraham doesn't get to see, but we, having the whole Bible, get to see it played out over the rest of history. And so I mean, just like Dr. Peterson does, you could spend hours and hours talking about this one chapter. But of course, the goal of this podcast is to help us understand the Bible. And so if you are struggling to understand it, you're struggling to put the different pieces together, maybe you've been in church for a long, long time and you just kind of need someone to help you weave all the different details together. That's what this podcast is for. Or maybe you've been in church for just a couple weeks, couple months, maybe you just gave your heart to the Lord and you're trying to find out what this is all about. What is the Bible? And so that's what this podcast is for. And I heard someone say just recently, I don't know how I've made it my whole life without ever hearing this, but when you pick up your Bible, it's not just a book. I mean, while this is a book, it's not just a book. What you're really holding here is a small library. You're holding letters, you're holding journals, you're holding history books, you're holding contracts, you're holding prophetic, apocalyptic literature. I mean, it's a whole library that's packed into this. And so today we're going to see more of the narrative side. We're going to see Genesis 22 and 23. And just recently we got to see Isaac is born. He's the promised child of God that was prophesied 25 years before. And now Abraham is 100 years old. Sarah is 90 years old, obviously both past the age of, certainly Sarah past the age of having children. So this is an absolute miracle on God's part and on their part for holding faith with the Lord. And so we saw that. We saw Abraham's deception with King Abimelech and how it's kind of a pattern for him where he kind of tells half-truths. And the fact that God has chosen Abraham is not an endorsement of this kind of behavior, but God, it seems, is looking more at Abraham's faith than he is at his sins. And so we also saw the doom of Sodom and how Lot's children ended up. And honestly, we're going to see them for pretty much the rest of the Bible. And so they'll follow us as well. But today we're going to be going through Genesis 22. We're going to look at some of the family tree of Abraham because we're going to skip forward a little bit in time as we go through the story. And we're going to see a couple maps as well to see where exactly they are traveling in these stories. And so let's dive into it. This is Genesis 22. Of course, I'm reading from the Amplified version of the Bible. If you have that in front of you can look at it on BibleGateway.com. You can look at it on your YouVersion app. And I just graduated from ORU with my master's, and I was lucky enough to have the creator of the YouVersion app. He was our keynote speaker at graduation, and I had no idea, but the YouVersion Bible app was one of the first 200 apps that was available on the App Store when it launched in 2008. The App Store itself, one of the first 200, which is so cool that God was right there at this new technological advancement with apps, that God has been there from the beginning, just like the Gutenberg press first printed the Bible. And so God's always at the forefront. He's always got people in place to perform his will and do great things. And so the YouVersion Bible app is great. And of course they're not a sponsor, but I always want to give them a shout out. The Alabaster Bibles are awesome if you're just needing, you should want pictures in the Bible. I always complained about a lot of my master's books didn't have enough pictures. And so if you like pictures, those are great. And so, but we're going to be in Genesis 22 today, and it says this. Now, after these things, God tested the faith and commitment of Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he answered, Here I am. God said, Take now your son, your only son of promise. And so remember, he does have two sons, but God is speaking specifically about the only son that I promised you, your son of promise, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on the mountains of which I shall tell you. Now, this seems absolutely wild to us because we know that Abraham is this promised child, and we also know the character of Yahweh and we know the character of the Lord, and this is not something he would ever ask for. And so we know that this is a test, and it's possible Abraham knew this was a test as well. We're going to see that in just a second, but maybe he didn't. And it's not, the unfortunate thing is that it wasn't unheard of in Abraham's day for child sacrifice. It's not unheard of in all of history. I mean, with so many, if not all, pretty close to all of the pagan and false worship that we see all around the world, from different religions to different tribes to different sects of groups, it kind of always seems to land at child sacrifice in the end, because it's just the absolute opposite of what God is. And so, but God wanted to test Abraham to see if he would even give up the thing that he loves most. Would you even give back to me the thing that you love most? And Abraham responds perfectly. He says, "Here I am." Pretty much all of the major characters in the Bible that we read about, at some point God comes to them and speaks to them, and their response is, "Here I am." And so if God ever speaks to you, you could ask him to, and he will. God still speaks all the time. If he ever says your name, the perfect response is always, "Here I am." We saw Samuel do it. We saw Adam do it. I think we saw Moses do it. We're seeing Abraham do it now. I mean, so many amazing characters like Ezekiel as well. When God talks to you, the best and first response is, "Here I am, Lord." And so he's telling him, take your son to this mountain in Moriah, which is in modern day Jerusalem. So if you're watching on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube, you can see our map here. And so this is modern day Jerusalem, also ancient Jerusalem. It's the same thing. And so Jerusalem's right here, and Mount Moriah is right in the center. And that's where the Temple Mount is today, that big golden dome that you see in Jerusalem, that the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims all care about so much, because we all trace our heritage back to Abraham. That's in Jerusalem. And so this is kind of what they were all talking about, is this moment. And so we're going to go through that right now. And so here it says, verse 3, so Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac, and he split the wood for the burnt offering. And then he got up and went to the place of which God had told him. What we're not privy to in this story is the conversation with Isaac. We're not privy to whether Abraham argued with God at all, or just did we don't. The Bible doesn't tell us. The Bible just tells us what happens. It tells us what it tells us. It also doesn't tell us his conversation with Sarah. So it could have been that Sarah trusted God just as much. It could have been that she fought him tooth and nail and he didn't put it in there because it was too painful. It could have been that he didn't tell her at all because he trusted that this really was just a test. But either way, we're not told. But we are told that he split the wood for the burnt offering, and Abraham gives birth to Isaac. Isaac gives birth to Jacob. It's the 3 sons, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through their wives. And so Jacob's name, as we'll see soon, is changed to Israel. So Abraham is kind of like the father of Israel. And it was Israel later on, the Jews, who prepared the cross for Jesus. And I don't know, I just think it's interesting that it's Israel in this case. It's the essence of Israel, Abraham, his faith. It's Israel that is preparing the wood for the sacrifice, just like the Jews will later on. They prepare the wood for the sacrifice of Jesus. And you can read into it all you want, but I don't know, I just think it's interesting. This is this on the 3rd day of travel. 3rd day, 3 is so important in the Bible. You're going to see it pop up all over the place, 3 and 7. 3rd day of travel, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Again, this is Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. Abraham said to his servants, "Settle down and stay here with the donkey. The young man and I will go over there and worship God. We will come back to you." This is actually the first occurrence that we see of the word worship. In the Hebrew, we see the word, it's very similar to the word worship, but we see that occur a couple times before now. But it's translated as bow down. And this is the first time this word is translated as worship. I actually preached about this on Sunday, that true worship in its most fundamental sense, as we're seeing right here, is sacrifice. true worship is sacrifice. So what are we giving up for the Lord? What is the Lord asking us to give up? Are we willing to give him the thing that's closest to us? Because he was willing to do that. And so are we willing to do that for the Lord? It says this, then Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on the shoulders of Isaac his son, and he took the fire pots in his own hand and the sacrificial knife, and the two of them walked on together. And so it's interesting that he would tell his servants, we are coming back. And so that's what kind of leads me to think that he maybe knew it was a test all along, because he's telling the servants, we are both coming back. It's not just me. We will both be back. We're going to go up. We're going to worship the Lord. And then, like I said, that Israel prepared the cross. He prepared the wood. It's Isaac, again, the sacrifice, the one being sacrificed, that is having to carry the wood up the hill. Just like Jesus, a couple thousand years later, would also carry the wood for the sacrifice up this exact same hill. So much symbolism is all happening right here. Isaac said to Abraham, my father, and he said, here I am. Second occurrence. My son, here I am, my son. Isaac said, look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, my son, God will provide for himself a lamb for the burnt offering. So the two walked on together. Again, dripping with symbolism that 2,000 years later, that's exactly what would happen, that God would provide for himself a sacrifice. If you and I were to die for our sins today on a cross, as we deserved, we would only be dying for our sins. But God wanted to make it a way for the whole world to be able to accept him without having to endure the pain of the cross. And so God provided for himself, his son. He provided a sacrifice for himself. And so God provided the sacrifice so that you and I can take on his sacrifice, so we can accept Jesus as Lord. And the sacrifice of Jesus can become our sacrifice. And so Abraham is exactly right. God will provide for himself a lamb for the burnt offering. Verse 9, when they came to the place of which God had told them, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood and bound Isaac his son and placed him on the altar on top of the wood. So Abraham's taking this very seriously. He's going through all the steps. Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord, which I would say is Jesus, called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he answered, here I am. Third occurrence. The Lord said, do not reach out with the knife in your hand against the boy and do nothing to harm him. For now I know that you fear God with reverence and profound respect, since you have not withheld from me your son, your only son of promise. And so, again, this is all a test. Will you give to me the thing that you care about most? This ties into what we do at baby dedications, where we're giving back to the Lord the thing that we love the most. This is why we take communion at weddings. It's, God, I've just got married, and the first thing I want to do is I want to give to you this marriage. The first thing in this marriage I want to do is take communion, remember your sacrifice. So are we willing to give God the thing that is most important to us? Then Abraham looked up and glanced around, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by his thorns. Again, to a male sheep. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering, a sending sacrifice instead of his son. So Abraham named the place, the Lord will provide. And it is said to this day, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be seen and provided. And so the word Moriah means God will provide, or it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, by myself, on the basis of who I am. So Jesus is swearing, like, on the basis of my character, by myself I have sworn an oath, declares the Lord, that since you have done this thing, you have not withheld from me your son, your only son of promise. Indeed, I will greatly bless you, and I will greatly multiply your descendants like the stars of the heavens, like the sand of the seashore. Your seed shall possess the gates of their enemies as conquerors. Through your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have heard and obeyed my voice. And so this is an incredible prophecy that is spoken over Abraham. That it's kind of like God saying, with great faith comes great blessing. And so it almost seems like that in this story, that let me switch the color here. that the amount of faith that we're willing to show God on behalf of ourselves is kind of corresponding to the amount of blessing that we will receive. And so it seems like in this story that faith corresponds to blessing. He was willing to give the thing that was most important, so God is willing to give him this greatest blessing that through him the whole earth will be blessed. Of course, we know that Abraham is in the line of Jesus, and Jesus is by which all the earth is blessed. So the prophecy was fulfilled. And another thing, if you want to really get into it, he tells him, I will greatly bless you and multiply your descendants like the stars of the heavens. And so the angels that are in heaven and the Elohim around God are often described as celestial bodies. And by that, it just means stars and planets and the moon and everything. And we saw early on that there was a rebellion where a third of heaven rebelled against the Lord. And so in the symbolism of it, it's kind of like a third of the stars have fallen. And it's almost like God is creating this replacement for them that's, I will make your descendants like the stars of the heaven. That's those that rebelled against me have made their decision, but I will take your faith, and on the basis of your faith, I will create a replacement for them. And so you can get into that if you want to. I was just reading about that in a book this week. And so verse 19, so Abraham returned to his servants, and they got up and went with him to Beersheba. And Beersheba means, I want to make sure I get it right here. Beersheba means well of the oath, or well of seven. And we saw that just recently, a couple chapters before. He's back to a place he's been before. Returned with his servants, and they got up and went with him to Beersheba. Abraham settled in Beersheba. Now after these things, Abraham was told, Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor. So basically, he's finding out that he's an uncle. Possibly, again, we don't know if, I don't know off the top of my head if this is his first nieces and nephews, but let's look at the family tree real quick. So at the top here we have, I'm going to change my color real quick. At the top here we have Terah, that's Abraham's father, and then we have Abram over here, who has obviously a child with Hagar, and Ishmael is now gone. But we have Sarah as well, and Isaac. And so that's this side, but now he's finding out that Nahor, his brother, and Milcah, who was technically Nahor's niece. Again, we're not told if this is frowned upon or not. We're just told that it is. We're just told that it is. We're not really given any specifics. But Abraham's finding out that he is an uncle again. And it says this, Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor, Uz, the firstborn, and Buz, his brother, and Kemuel, the father of Aram. So those are not listed even on this. I don't know if they do very much after this. Chesed and Hazo and Pildash and Jidlaph and Bethuel. Bethuel, so I guess that's the one that we want to focus on here. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. So we have Rebekah down here. These 8 children, Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. So Nahor's concubine, she's not listed on here as well, whose name was Reumah, gave birth to Teba, Gaham, Tehash, and Ma'akah. And so I have just a list of the few of the names here in front of me, what they mean. And so Uz means counsel, Buz means despise. It could have been, it's a firstborn, secondborn situation where the firstborn is favored, the secondborn is not. Kemuel means congregation of God. Chesed means loving kindness. And more specifically, it means, as my Hebrew professor would say, the chesed ve'emet, the loving kindness chasing after us. It's when we see that, it's not just the loving kindness of God, but this word means any kindness that God shows that he is not obligated to show. And so, you could think about it. When somebody comes over to your house, they're kind of obligated to answer the door, to say hello, to shake your hand, to invite you in. Anything that they do on top of that, we could say, is the chesed that they are showing on behalf of you. So they welcome you in. They immediately offer you food. They take your jacket. They ask you how your day has been. They give you a gift when you come in the door. All these things are above and beyond. And so anything that God does that is above and beyond is the chesed, the loving kindness of God. And so it's a great name to have. Doesn't really work for Americans. He'd probably just be called Cheese most of his life. But that's his name. So Hazo means vision. Pildash means flame of fire, a spark. Jidlaf means weeping, or possibly he will drip. It could refer to like tears from the eye. Rebecca means to tie firmly or captivating, and Aram means exalted or high. And so this doesn't really tell us a lot about who they are. I mean, you could get into it and probably split hairs on it, but what it does tell us is that the faith of this family is intact at this point, where we're not seeing any names that start with Baal, and we're not seeing any names that mean evil, or any names that mean giant, or any names that mean wickedness or things like that. We're seeing loving kindness, we're seeing flame, we're seeing captivating, and congregation of God, and counsel, and Bethuel means man of God, and Nahor means snorting. So that's kind of a random one in there. But we're seeing it's almost like the family line is intact so far. And so that's what we learned from that chapter, and that's what we learned so far. But now we're going to go into chapter 23. And again, I think I said it before, a lot of this is highs and lows. The story is not written to you to be a great uplifting story for all of it. It's meant to write down what is happening. What is the history of this family? And so we're going to see something. We're going to see the other side. Chapter 23 says, Sarah lived 120 years, and this was the length of Sarah's life. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And so Sarah has Isaac at the age of 90. She lives 30 more years to see him grow up a bit. And then Sarah dies. And that's kind of the end. It says Abraham stood up before his dead wife's body and spoke to the sons of Heth. This is the Hittites in the area. And so we can look at the map once again. If I can pull it up. So let's look at our map here. So we have the Mediterranean Sea is way out over here. That's my eraser. Mediterranean Sea is way out over here. We have the whole coast of Israel. But if we zoom in here, we have Mount Moriah is here in Jerusalem, but down here in Hebron, moving south, is where they are now. And so this is directly west of the Dead Sea. And it says, Abraham told the Hittites, I am a stranger, a sojourner, a resident alien among you. Sell to me property for a burial place among you, so that I may bury my dead in the proper manner. So obviously he wants to bury his wife in the correct way. And we're going to see what the Hittites say now. The Hittites replied to Abraham, listen to us, my lord. You are a prince of God, a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our graves. None of us will refuse you his grave or hinder us from burying your dead wife. And so they obviously know that Abraham is a big deal. We've talked about some of the exploits of Abraham. He has been extremely rich in his life, to the point where his nephew Lot, they couldn't even live in the same area because they had been blessed by the Lord so much. And of course, we know that Abraham's small army defeated the armies that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah initially. And so Abraham's a big deal in this area. And they're saying, listen, whatever burial plot you want, just take it. It's like, none of us are going to refuse you. So Abraham stood up and bowed to the people of the land, the Hittites. And Abraham said to them, if you are willing to grant my dead a proper burial, listen to me and plead with Ephron, the son of Zohar, for me, so that he may sell me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. And Machpelah just means double. Don't know if it's really significant, but it means double. It is at the end of the field, and let him give it to me here in your presence for the full price as a burial site, which I may keep forever among you. And, okay, we'll talk about it in a second. Now, Ephron was present there among the sons of Heth, the Hittites. So within the hearing of all the sons of Heth and all who were entering the gate of the city. So a lot of the business dealings that happened, I want you to think of a city as just being like a large, so you have a large, I guess like let me switch it to white real quick. So in a city back then, city was all about walls because that was the protection back then, and it is today for a lot of cities. But so you have the wall of the city here, and you might have gates that are at the north, south, east, and west. And right here in those gates, as foreigners are coming in and people are going out, you have, that's where a lot of the business dealings would happen, right there in the gates. And so you have all the houses, and you have the palace, you have everything, all the shops on the inside. But right at the gate, this is where a lot of business dealings would go down. And that's what we're seeing here with the Hittites. And so a lot of these boys are standing around, and the guy that they're talking about happens to be standing there. And it says, now Ephron was present among these. And in verse 11, it says, no, my lord, hear me. I give you the entire field, and I also give you the cave that is in it. In the presence of the men of my people, I sell it to you. Bury your dead there. And so he's trying to honor Abraham and say, I'm not just going to give you the cave on my land. I want to give you the whole field. And then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land. He said to Ephron in the presence of the people of the land, if you will only please listen to me and accept my offer, I will give you the price of the field. Accept it from me, and I will bury my dead there. Again, he's trying to pay for it. He's trying to do it for real. Could be that he doesn't want to ever be accused of having stolen the land. He doesn't want to maybe take any favors at this point. It could be that he's just so distraught, and he's like, I just want to pay for it and get it over with. I don't need charity at this point. He could be thinking, these Hittites are not Israelites. They're not, Israel doesn't really exist yet, but they're not the people of God. And so he doesn't want to take any favors from the people of God. The same way he told the king of Sodom, I will not take even a sandal strap from you, because I never want you to be able to say that you built me. And so he's trying to pay for it. And it could also be that he needs witnesses here to witness the selling of this land so they can do this contract properly. He said to Ephron in the presence of the people, if you only accept it, please accept my offer. I will give you the price of the field. Accept it from me, and I will bury my dead there. Verse 14, Ephron replied to Abraham, verse 15, my lord, listen to me. The land you seek is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And in the bottom of the Amplified Bible, it has concerning verse 15, it says, what is this between you and me? What does this verse mean? The dialogue in this chapter gives a wonderfully detailed example of the bargaining process of the day. Abraham clearly understood Ephron's generous statement as a politely phrased way of setting his price. It's like him say well, it's worth 400 shekels, but what is that to you and me? You and I are friends. That's no big deal to us. Like that's the set price. I'm not trying to take advantage of you. And it goes on in verse 16 says, so Abraham listened to Ephron and agreed to his terms, and he weighed out for Ephron the amount of silver which he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weights current among the merchants. So the field of Ephron in the Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, Hebron, so to the east, closer to the Dead Sea, the field and the cave which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field and in all its borders around it were deeded over legally to Abraham. To Abraham as his possession in the presence of the Hittites before all who were entering the gates of the city. And so we're seeing that the deed is passing. They're listing out everything that is included in the land. It's the trees, it's all the fruit, it's all the grass, it's the land, it's the cave, it's everything within these borders were deeded over in front of these witnesses. So we have everything that's proper for a contract, including the fact that they weighed out the money that was necessary. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah in the east of Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave in it were deeded over to Abraham by the Hittites as a permanent possession and burial place. So that's kind of the end of the chapter. We see this chapter is all about the death of Sarah and him buying this land. And so again, the Bible's it's not written by Stephen King to draw you in and hold your attention for all of it. This this is the story of their lives. You're reading a narrative, but you're really almost like reading a journal. It's not meant, the Bible wasn't written for us. It wasn't written like to you. It wasn't written like for the purpose of us reading. It was written to record down these events. And saving it for the end, I think the biggest importance of him wanting to buy this land here is, I think it's the same importance that we see with King David later on, where King David wants to establish an altar for the Lord on this threshing floor. But the man that he wants to buy it from is trying to honor David so much that he won't sell it to him. He wants to just give it to him. But David responds to him and says, I will not give anything to the Lord that did not cost me anything. So David understands the purpose of sacrifice. He's saying, I'm not going to give the Lord anything that I got for free. I explained it to my youth kids. It's like you would never give someone like your significant other you wouldn't wrap up things around your house that you already had and give it to her, because that wouldn't mean anything. There's no sacrifice. There's no giving away. We already owned all of this. David wants to sacrifice something for the Lord. I want to give God something that cost me something. This is almost like, I think, Abraham's way of saying, I want to honor my wife by paying full price. She is worth the cost of the money that it would take to bury her here in this place. It's like Abraham saying, I will not give my wife anything that cost me nothing. And so that's the end of the chapter there. And I know this is a little bit of a shorter episode. It's only about 30-ish minutes, but that's the story. And that's all I got for you. And so next week we will get into who Isaac is going to marry, and we're going to look at Abraham's death as well. So this time we looked at Sarah's death. Next time we'll look at Abraham's death, and there's a lot packed into the next couple chapters, as always. And so look forward to hearing from you next week. We did have one comment asking why God is always referred to with male pronouns as like father and the word he and everything. And the best way I can explain that is that that's how God reveals himself to us. God doesn't reveal himself to us as like this asexual spirit. I mean, I asked my dad a long time ago, and I said, is God really a man? But God is above and beyond that. God is that eternal fire. He is that bright light. He is the power and the glory and the love and the wrath of the universe. He is all of that rolled into one. But also in the New Testament, Jesus refers to him as Father. And so if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. And so I think that's why we refer to him as Father all the time. But that's what I got for you this week. This has been Genesis 22 and Genesis 23. I look forward to seeing you guys next week on the Amplified podcast.